All right. In case you missed it, let's take a look at the best of 2023 because there's a lot to cover. So I'm going to try and not go too fast, but don't worry. There will be follow up and you'll get information and there will be links on each one of these. So going back to just about a year ago, we were visited. This was our second time by Brooke Went from Medina, Ohio. She's a job training coordinator and intervention specialist there. And she's done a couple of these webinars and she's always surprising us because she does this thing, which I call, and I guess a lot of people do call app smashing. So if you've not heard of that before, app smashing is the ed tech term for just pulling in all of the right tools that you need at the right time for the right kiddo. And just putting them together in the right order. So she was using things like Google Forms to create assessments, Kahoot to make the assessments really engaging, and Pear Deck, which just they're all three of those are free, and they really help you kind of broaden the materials we already include, right? So we include slides that you can use. Well, Pear Deck makes it interactive. So it's if it works for you and your students, it's a really great thing. And she starts off by doing things like making those connections to the community. So really good basic transition 101 types of best practices, researching locally. In this case, she was doing a unit on independent living. So she looked at apartments and houses in the communities, talking with realtors, doing virtual tours, going on grocery shopping, and things along that line, which I'm sure many of you do as well. And then she kind of took, this is what it looks like when you do the app smashing. So she took some of our content, and then she began to make it interactive. So students could really begin to fill out forms and or make selections. And this is what it looks like in the student view. So they see the prompt and the content, and then they can make a choice. And then the cool part is in the teacher view, the teacher can see who's made what choices. At a moment's glance, you get a quick assessment on the room. How many of you know what you want to do when you want to first start out? What are the first things you should be doing? And so you can tell if everybody in the room gets it, great, we move on. If they don't, we'll have maybe the one or two students that do understand, explain to their peers, or we'll talk about it. So all of those good teaching skills, app smashing, fun stuff, January 2023 with Brooke Went. All right. In February, we were joined by none other by Karen Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. And let me tell you, this is one of those webinars that if you do have new staff, whether it's new teachers or if it's new paraprofessionals or anybody else out there, this is a great primer, a refresher even for those who may not have been working with certain populations for a while. So what are the 5 pillars of an IEP? What do you need to know about present levels of academic achievement and functional performance? How do you write up your annual goals? How do you begin to assess what types of accommodations students needs? And always keeping in mind the LRE, that least restrictive environment, and ways that you can make that possible. And then, trying to take a look and see how much time and what types of resources you need to bring to bear. Karen goes into each of those pieces in detail. It's a great primer. It's really wonderful. I had an administrator once who was kind of put overseeing some of our support specialists and so forth. And he really was more of a gen ed administrator who just kind of ended up in that role for a bit. I would think this would be a great thing for somebody like that too. Just kind of needs to know the basics. And so she's awesome. She's offers a lot of different types of support services. So here's some of that contact information. And I think February 2023 is great for that reason. Back in March, oh my gosh, we really had a ton of fun. So this was from Emily Scheffler. She's one of our great teachers. Gosh, she's been with us for a long, long time from Horry County in South Carolina. And you'll see just the types of things that they began to do in preparation for those transition programs at the upper grade levels. She began at the elementary schools with just simple recycling projects and making it kind of like a little business so that the students had real roles to play in their recycling projects at the elementary schools. But that was all building up to the next level of their Java Jaws, which is their school-based enterprise, their coffee cart that they do at their upper grade levels and so forth. And this is really where she created a business in the school and taught students that entrepreneurship from the ground level up. And she used a lot of our materials in doing so. So they really looked at all of the different components, from what types of funds do they need to get started, how do they take their orders in, what are the different jobs that are involved and the skills associated with that. It's a winning recipe for school-based enterprise, and you can see for yourself. I mean, just really great delivery. I could eat one of those pancakes right now. They just look yummy. And I just love the intensity on the students, all the way on over on the right with the washing machines behind him, because he's really working to figure out. And I think that that's some of our materials that he's got in front of him there, because our curriculum comes with all of the worksheets and the things that you would need to do hands-on with students as they're going on through. She did a number of different types of work-based learning in Horry County, and she went into each one of them. And, you know, one of the big things that we've learned over these 3 years of Webinar Wednesdays has been to really make sure that these school-based work opportunities are geared towards your local community. Right. So if you have hotels in your local community, the car washes, and so on and so forth, you find those types of industries that are local and build up the skill set so that your students, when they exit the system, have really marketable skills locally everywhere that's available. And again, you can see that this is out in the community and involving those community leaders that are willing to help our kiddos learn the steps to success that they need. So pretty cool stuff from Emily Scheffler.
Oh, thanks. Really
It's a
quick,
great
Joyce. Sorry, I want to jump in really quick. So Emily was our 2022 Gary Bates Award winner. So as you guys can see, she did some incredible stuff with our curriculum. And I love, love, love all the stories about the student enterprises with Project Discovery. I know that I just heard from another customer in Indiana who they have like a whole retailing store with a retailing kit and stuff. So it's just really cool to listen to all
I'm
of
so glad you mentioned that. I forgot. You're absolutely right. Yep. So that is another testament to the wonderful people who we get the privilege of working with in our roles. All righty. In May, we were joined by none other than Dr. Cynthia Nixon, one of my all-time favorites. And there's more because she came back again in August and did so much, a little bit more with us. But I'm going to tell you, between these two courses, between the May and August, and look how I even refer to it, courses. These are little mini courses in everything you need to know, in this case, about the fundamentals of best practices for transition. And Dr. Nixon even honored our little mantra of one size does not fit all, and talked about individualization as one of her big pieces. So we were so pleased with that. But she really talked about what are the options and what are what's the reality check on those options, quality education to enable them to move seamlessly past secondary to some sort of post-secondary. And so she talked about that. She talked about the instructional strategies like the 10-2 strategy, where a teacher talks for no more than 10 minutes and pauses for 2 minutes to allow students to process the information. So this is what I mean by it was a real like college course on things that everyone should know, talking about school and community involvement and getting to coordinate some of those services, to be able to, excuse me, talk about IEP compliance and transition tips And you can see some of the things that have been mentioned in February with our 5 pillars that get reiterated in here, but it's really a great one here to go back to and take a look at May 2023. I'll follow up on some of my Cynthia Nixon comments in just a moment when we move on, but there's some of her contact info as well. And then in June, we really kind of took a deep dive into how the transition objectives get married into an IEP or ITP, right? So there's usually, in my experience, there's usually a call for affective types of goals in an IEP that start very early on, even with little ones. And smart, IEPs have ITP types of goals all the way throughout. But we began here by talking about the individualization of those plans and what the transition indicators should be. So that is a really good eye opener, because this is a great way of saying, when you're writing your very first IEPs with the new student or a new class, what are the things that I should be including? Transition planning, youth development, family-centered planning practices, family engagement and transition planning, relationships, independent living and community engagement, cross-agency collaboration. Number 7, really important, something I've had a lot of good success with over the years. And employment viability, once again, with local community-based employment pathways that you can carve on out, which may or may not lead to post-secondary education. And sometimes that might be a college experience. Sometimes it might be some sort of an apprenticeship or internship, and so forth. And so looking locally for those types of pieces. Carla Fernberg, and I think I went very quickly over her name earlier. Carla had also provided a lot of information on some free resources. So this NTAC, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, is something that you'll want to maybe screenshot here, because there's a toolkit here that is free and that provides you with really an array of different types of tools to assess and evaluate where students are at. You can see in this example things that might be, at a very beginning level for students, and then kind of working on up from formal to more informal types of assessments. There's a lot of different pieces that are available to you through NTEC, so many different types of tools. So I would strongly suggest that you maybe take a look at that and see where things come to play, and if that helps you out with what you're looking for. Carla also went on into her experience with Project Discovery. And I think that this is really, just kind of one of those pieces that just warms our heart, because it goes on into talking about what it looks like. And so very clearly, you could even just see over the shoulders of these students that, our materials presented in a very visual way, in a very clear, not complicated and not all cluttered kind of a way, right? So it's a lot, it's really easy to lay out each of the task analysis that go into various different types of jobs as we present them to students. And then once they get to it, take a moment to just absorb this on in. And once again, the intensity of how the students are concentrating. The first little boy is pouring some of the soil mixture, the mulch and soil mixture that we made, and he's pouring it into each of the planters. The other girl is putting in some additional, she's soaking some and making sure that the soil is moist enough. You can see all of the students collaborating and working together with their garb that they're wearing there. I love the young man's smile right in the middle, because he feels a sense of accomplishment and ability to work autonomously. I mean, that's just precious. This is really where it leads us. And what they are looking at very specifically is very, very core teaching. This is a STEM lesson on growth and learning, and part of our horticulture and agriculture curriculum and so forth. And all of those materials are included, right? So the peat pots, the planters, the petri dishes, all of these things are included in the kit. So teachers aren't running around trying to find this stuff. It's all part of it. And I just, and this is Carla's interpretation of it. Everyone's growth looks different. And we love that. That's really a big, big, big part of it. So Carla Hernberg, she's the director of special ed from Pennsylvania, from the Charleroi area school district in Pennsylvania. And if you're interested in looking in deeper about how some of those skill-based job skill-based lessons look like, you can listen to her talk about it from the June session. All right. I told you we'll be back to Dr. Nixon in a minute. We skipped July for a summer hiatus. And when Dr. Nixon came back, she really got into the community-based services. And so again, a little mini college course. She does teach at Francis Marion University in the School of Ed. She's the associate dean there as well, and has had a long career from classroom teacher through director of special ed and transition services all the way up into higher ed. What I loved about this was that she started with the letter of the law. So here's IDEA law, section 300.1.a and point 32 and so forth. And she highlighted where transition and employment are called out for. And she continued with that for a bit. So especially for our new teachers. And I know so many of you are struggling with teacher shortages, that you have a lot of new teachers. So that's why we're kind of underscoring, here's some additional professional development tools for them. But for those people who didn't take this course in college themselves, here's a great way for them to get ahead of it. So from the letter of the law, what does it really mean? She deconstructed it for us and really brought it on into what the vernacular is about, talking about what the training facilities need to look like and what the actual business environment is to the classroom and how our counselors and support staff can work with that. She got into a lot about where we are with our community-based training, how we can work with the Department of Labor and meet those regulations that are out there. So, being able to understand how to do job shadowing safely is an interesting situation, right? Because some of those actual jobs are challenging, right? If you have to do certain things, like let's say you're working with a landscaper and they're spraying various herbicides or things like that. We want our students to be safe. And if they're just learning a job, maybe that's not the time that they should be job shadowing out in the field unless they've got the correct protective gear on. So there are lots of different DOL types of guidelines that she went into about numbers of hours, types of placements, and things like that. So that's kind of a big part of this when we're talking about transition. And here's some additional good specific examples. She was using our carpentry job skills training. And now keep in mind, this is like a 90-hour course. This is our big top of the line curriculum that really could last like first semester, second semester in carpentry. So students could really get almost a certification. These are the competencies that they will come on out with. And at the end of this course, they could qualify for a digital badge, so they could really come up with that kind of additional certification and credential, right? So the digital credentialing that might go along with it that says, yes, the student has demonstrated competency in these occupational safety skills, or in measuring skills for carpentry, or in various different opportunities within the business and what it takes to be a carpenter. So you want to be a carpenter's helper? Let's translate into everyday language. You really need to take a look and make sure that students understand that the safety signs on a job site are not there just for decoration. they're there for safety. And so really interpreting them. I remember the story that said that Ringling Brothers Circus, that he used to use a sign that said egress because nobody knew what it meant. And he didn't want them to be leaving the circus. He wanted them to stay. But if they needed to, for emergency sake, that was the egress. Well, we all know that to be the exit. And we want students to be able to find the exit. We want them to know where there are various different eye washing stations or other types of safety signs that lead us to things we need to know. And our curriculum does go into that. It goes into the math skills of planning what to build, how to measure twice and cut once, and things like that, that a real carpenter will tell you are the real things. And then it goes into the actual projects. So going to a local lumber yard, a Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever is local to you, and being able to look at and shop out all the different types of woods so that you understand, oh, this is not the only type of wood that might be with this type of veneer or thickness and so forth. And here are the different ranges and costs. And to really be able to help students understand, because if you're going to be a carpenter and you're going to go, let's say, work at somebody's house and give them a proposal to build some steps off of their laundry room door. Well, what type of wood are you going to use? Is it going to be able to weather and in that particular environment? And all of the different things that they need to think about before they purchase a lumber, and that would tell them the cost. And then they could make a proposal. Those are job skills. Those are real life, real job skills. And so Dr. Nixon took go back to the beginning slide, from IDEA law all the way down to, walking into a lumber yard and being able to have students feel that they have an understanding of what it means to be a real life carpenter before they get to a job site. Just really, really helps. And there's another person who will give us some more examples of that in a bit. But Dr. Nixon from South Carolina, strongly recommend both the May or the August, especially for any of your new teachers. All righty. That brings us to September. And this is one that I actually personally missed. So I watched the recording twice because Dr. Wall, who's a Transition Alliance of South Carolina representative and an lifelong educator, really gave such amazing advice. I really got so much out of watching the recording. I can't recommend it more strongly. She started off with very high level information from the US Department of Ed and a national survey of what to be looking for. She talked about where those US DOE state and district strategies were laying and how they related to each other, and then brought it on down to the particular stages for individualizing those transition strategies that in South Carolina, they have embraced. So it was from high, upper level on down to how do we bring this home? And then she shared from this Transition Alliance of South Carolina, the task. She shared some of the resources that are there, and I'll give you the URL for that in just a moment. It's coming on up, but you can see here from transition planning and assessment, student engagement, career curricula, and community work experiences, a number of different resources that were made available. One of which is this. I would say, if you know how, go ahead and do a screenshot of this and go to scworks.org, because this had a really nice interface for students as a job seeker to begin to kind of walk through and see some of the guidance that might be available. This is really great for our secondary students, mild and moderately impaired students would be really great for them. And I even like going through the employer part with the students to say, here's what employers are being asked as they put up a job requirement, right? So they're putting up a posting for a job that they're looking for, a want ad, and employers are asked X number of questions. And I think it's really eye-opening when you see what an employer needs to specify if you're a job seeker. So it really helps you kind of identify that. And so then she kind of picked up on the same tack that Dr. Nixon had been talking about, helping us better understand what are some of the things that need to be done. So job shadowing and or just a work site tour, always a great way to start, even with our youngest learners. And then informational interviews, mentoring, and working with our curriculum here. I think this is really, we do a lot of this awareness generation with some of our video modeling, especially with some of our younger curriculum. The pre-boarding and onboarding training is right in our project discovery wheelhouse. And then it prepares students for those internships and apprenticeships and some really competitive employment in their particular area. So she kind of did another deep dive into a different one of our curriculums. This is our Project Discovery Small Engine Repair Kit, which, by the way, comes with a real live small engine. And so in the privacy of your classroom, using a lawnmower engine, students can change the oil or the spark plugs before they're in the community-based workplace. And she spoke about something that to me was an aha. And she was saying about one of her students that he really had a obsession with washing his hands. So we've all had that kid. I've had several of them. Touch one thing, have to wash your hands. So we always go through desensitization, and try to have students understand that they don't have to do it every single time. But nevertheless, is that student the right student to be looking at employment in the automotive repair field if they're going to be working with dirty old engines and changing oils and things like that? Well, this is a great way for them to figure it out right in their very own classroom, right? So that you can tell at that moment, gee, I love cars, but I really hate the innards. I don't want to touch all that stuff. I just want to get in and put the key in and drive. Okay, that's great too, because it helps them learn this in a really safe environment where they can get that coaching from their teacher and talk about it with their peers, and then begin to look at roles that would be more appropriate for them, roles that really do fit not only their skill set, but their interest level. I thought that was a really big aha. And then another aspect that was unique within that task set of resources, which is a Transition Alliance of South Carolina task we've mentioned before, that it's skills to pay the bills. And I love that because it really brings it home to kiddos. What do you need to know in order to work in today's world? And look at this line up here: video skills to pay the bills. TTYL and JK and ROTF. She spoke about the fact that in today's world, everything is so centered around our cell phones, our mobile phones, and texting, that students will send an email and they'll do stuff like LOL or JK and so forth in there, but that's not appropriate for an email correspondence from a business, right? So if I write to a business and I want to know how much 4 cords of wood would cost for blah, 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 whatever it is. And the student writes back to me because they're an apprentice and they say, oh, it'll cost $1 million. LOL. No, that's not a professional response to a prospective customer. So she goes into that. That's a really relevant type of a thing. We have a lot of communication skills built into what we do, even just basic skills like being able to answer the phone. I mean, my father trained each one of us kids. You answer the phone and, if you're calling your friend, you say, hello, this is Joyce. May I please speak with Michelle? And you're very proper with that's how I was trained as a little girl. Well, they don't do that anymore. They don't make phone calls, frankly. So learning how to answer the phone and say, hi, thank you for calling Jiffy Lube. And how may I provide you with excellent service today is a real skill that we need to directly instruct, just like we do everything else. So LOL to that. She had a great video. You may want to screen capture this and we'll put that link in to our follow-up emails and information. But these were people just kind of talking from the task organization that really helped, double click on this, Task actually has a whole YouTube channel and lots of short videos like this that you can go on in and kind of binge watch and see which one might fit your needs. So you could even just go to YouTube and look up the Transition Alliance of South Carolina, or TASC, and you'll get all of their YouTube channel pieces. So our great thanks to Dr. Wall. Here's the information about Task. So you might want to screenshot this as well. Lots of that going on here today. But it was really a great webinar, and just chock full of good stuff. All righty. And this was our last webinar Wednesday of the year. And I really don't want to say that I'm saving the best for last, because everything else that I've just spoken about has been the best as well. But I'll let you be the judge when you see some of the material that Karen Squires, who's from Red River School District in Louisiana, she really brought it home, because she shared her experience. She didn't just talk about it, she shared her experience with creating a really effective dropout prevention continuum of services. Okay, these were her objectives for the webinar. So whoever went through this webinar had certain learning objectives as well. This was serious. She started off with where they were in Red River School District in Louisiana in 2011. Graduation rate overall, this is gen ed and special ed, graduation rate of 48%. Take that in for a moment. A dropout rate overall, 50%. And then the special education graduation and dropout rate also 60% dropout rate. It's heartbreaking, right? You're doing all of this work and you still have a 60% dropout rate. Well, it didn't stay that way. All right. So the first thing that they did was to really examine what the path of a dropout student was. What are those common things? And they used data to build this up. They found that students who were retained for 1 or more years in elementary school, students who were excluded from the general curriculum, or these are all and/ors, retained by state 8th grade test, and/or entered the 9th grade at the age of 16 or 17. Students who had any of these characteristics were going to be part of that 60% dropout rate. So they knew what caused the problem, or they had a handle on it, right? And then they developed a plan. Strategic goals around curriculum instruction assessment, parental and community involvement, so important in our transition world, and around attendance and graduation rates. And they began to really strategically implement it. They said, what do we need to do? They developed a 9th grade academy. They trained all teachers, gen ed and special ed, on differentiated instruction. They created inclusion transition. They created a dropout prevention program to transition students to work experience and life skills, work-based and life skill courses. So I'm sure, I'm just going to kind of say that this is where they came and they found us. This is going back to 2011. And since then, they have been working on and focusing on long-term change. And it's not just rhetoric. It's really taking a look at this on a regular basis and looking at how students are working under this RTI framework, taking a look at how they structure their special education classrooms, and really began their early dropout intervention as early as 6th grade. And I think that is one of the reasons that we actually developed that first career awareness section, if I'm correct. The way I was taught on Education Associates, that we developed a lot of pieces because of some of the things that Red River was asking us for. And part of that, early awareness, so that our youngsters in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade can explore medical careers, can explore automotive, can explore all these different areas, and kind of get a sense of what they all entail to make better decisions as they get older. Are you ready for really where this leads us to? I hope you are. Because if you look at 2011, and then we've not just got one, we got 2 data points, right? So 2012, 2018, immediate, like it literally just reversed 48% to 84%, and now at 96%. 96% overall graduation rate, gen ed and special ed. Dropout rate dropped from 50% through 12 down to 4%. Special education students followed in tandem, 98% graduation rate and 2% dropout rate. I really get a little bit emotional about that right there. This is real data, real change, real results. And look at the strategic plan that was behind it. Come back and watch our November webinar, because this is the recipe. And we're just one little piece of it. We didn't do this, they did this. But they used this, and we're very proud to be part of that solution. It has changed the community. They have been accredited and called out in so many different ways. And, you know, it all comes to be, you just can't change one little piece of the wheel and expect everything to fit. It was a lot of people working together in a lot of ways, gen ed and special ed together. And look at the last point. The voters of the district approved a $10 million vocational facility because they had the proof, right? Remember this proof? The proof is in the pudding, and it came through. And so here's what we learned from them, and what y'all can learn from them as well. Career awareness begins early, and it's fun, and we can make it fun, and we can have hands-on based, evidence-based, differentiated instruction for all. And by the way, I just say really quickly that within each one of our curricula, we integrate and correlate back to academic skills. So while they're having all this fun and doing hands-on project-based examples about what careers are, et cetera, they're learning math. What math do you need to know as a carpenter? They're writing, they're reading. How do I write an email as a customer service representative? Right? I mean, all of these pieces are correlated and aligned within our curriculum. And so here's where she kind of points out it would be how it's all fun. I think when I look at this screen, I think this is fun for the teacher, because this is what comes in our kits. You don't have to go spend your Saturdays shopping around and trying to figure out what you need in order to teach small animal care, or help care for infantry and so forth. You can find it all within one big bin. So you don't have to go running around looking for that stuff. And that goes and holds true throughout all of our materials. Oh, there you go. Extra math and reading courses, which she included. High school courses offered to junior high students, and deep dropout and early exit prevention, a mentoring program, and career exploration. Just pretty awesome stuff. And the hands-on keeps students interested. Our materials are arranged so that you're doing one thing with the whole group at their individual level, K-3, 4-5. We don't care. Whatever your ability level is, we'll meet you there and we'll help you get together. And that's really part of this little piece. So amazing. The 9th grade academy, I'm looking at our time, and why it really, what they did and what makes a difference. And so I'll just share with you. I really started off by saying I didn't want to leave the best for last. It just kind of comes out that way. And because there's such a proof in the pudding, look at these students doing in their vocational training facility, helping and assisting patients on and off of a bed. I mean, that's a teacher who's in that lower right-hand corner. They're helping the teacher on and off the bed as if they were preparing to be a healthcare assistant, right? This is practicing with the dolls, the beautiful dolls that come in our childcare kits that are really real life feeling dolls. Oh, and then doing it with real children. This is the full circle. Can I just say welding? It just kind of, yeah, real hands-on. Look at the pride on that young man's face with his birdhouse that he made. and all different levels working all together in so many different ways. I love, love, love this project. She explained that, I mean, from local parents, community members, churches, and so forth, donating old furniture that is in the cellar or attic of their building, gathering dust because it's broken, to the school vocational training center where kids can learn how to refinish and restore. What? That's just a great way to get source materials. I mean, people want to get that stuff. I have stuff in my basement I'd like to get rid of. So
Joyce, I just want to say, I just love it whenever we see pictures like this, during webinars of students using the curriculum and, just really interacting. Like, it is very obvious just by looking at these pictures why the dropout reduction was so dramatic. Because if you look at how engaged that these students are, how excited that they are, how could you not get excited to learn when you're using the real tools and when you're doing these role plays and when you're actually getting to engage in the topic. It's just incredible. I love, love, love these pictures. So I know that we were looking at time, but I think everybody can agree that all about the students, and this is where everybody gets the most excited. So
and she ended with this. This is the last slide on Karen's stuff. How did they pay for it? And we can help you with this. We have lots of information and alignments to all of these different funding sources. But that last bullet there, district funds and voter buy-in, was done because they had a real strategic plan using approved, validated, and endorsed tools and curriculum, hands-on materials, and so forth. It all works. You have to have, it all just added up right to the piece. So Karen Squires, by the way, she is one of our nationally certified trainers. We have a cadre of people that we lean on that do the professional development. So when you become part of our Education Associates family, this might be somebody who might be there to help share that knowledge with your teachers. So with that said, if there are any questions, Michelle, did you have anybody sending you any questions on the side?
Not this time. I think everybody was just kind of in awe of everything. I think everybody's processing because it is so much information, but it was so much great information. And I got to see a lot of my favorites in there, which made me really excited. Karen, of course, was fantastic. Dr. Wall was incredible and I think I put in the chat that she had a ton of free resources in there. I mean, all of the speakers were just fabulous. They were rock stars. So I put in the chat links to all of the webinars. Oh, Brenda has a question.
Okay, go for it, Brenda.
Here, Brenda. While she writes that, I'm also going to put a link to our Webinar Wednesday page on our website, which Joyce will show you guys too in a minute. But that way, if you guys click on that, you can see all of the recordings of our past webinars.
That's exactly right. And Brenda, you can ask at any time. We'll take your question. But when you go to educationassociates.com, at the bottom of any one of our pages, you can get a preview packet so you can actually not only see the curriculum, but you can hear the natural audio done by real humans, not computerized audio, and real video modeling. So you can see some examples of that. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can get in touch with us. There's a lot of things right off the bottom of any one of our pages there. Here's what one of our preview packs might have within it there. And the newsletters are not sales spiels. I've got a lot of administrators who subscribe to this, and then they just forward it to their team as appropriate. So this is one that just kind of outlined a resource that Dr. Cheryl Hubbard George, from South Carolina, who had done one of our presentations in the year prior. We have this contact us that's at the bottom, which will allow you to kind of get a personal tour, or a one-to-one Zoom. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You can either do it at the bottom of any one of those pages, or you can do it right from Let's Talk at the top, and we'll do a one-on-one Zoom with y'all. And then, as Michelle has put into the chat, there is our Webinar Wednesday page. So you can go ahead and kind of thumb through any one of those. In our resources, there's a lot. Our research materials, the research here is so great. You can just literally pull it into grants that you're writing, pull it into justifications for programs. And we're happy to, to help you kind of find the pieces that you need as well, as you're going on through with it. And we've been doing this for a long time. So that's really what it's about. And then here's some of the information on the funding and so forth that we've got for you.